Hi, everybody, and welcome to our viewers and our esteemed guests to another episode of Spoken and Heard. I'm Haley Mitchell Haugen, and I'm the founding editor of the quarterly poetry journal Sheila-Na-Gig Online, now wrapping up our 10th year of publication, and the small press Sheila-Na-Gig editions, with more than 80 anthologies, individual poetry collections, chapbooks published since 2017. These projects fall under the umbrella of our 501c3 nonprofit arts organization, Sheila-Na-Gig Inc., where we strive to uplift established and new poets everywhere. I hope you'll check us out at SheilaNagigBlog.com, where I encourage you to read the journal and, of course, support our authors by buying their books. It's my honor to offer tonight's online platform for Kari Gunter Seymour's Spoken and Heard. Very exciting. Kari Gunter Seymour, as many of you know, is the immediate past poet laureate of Ohio and recipient of an Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship, IPPY Bronze Award, NYC Big Book Award, a National Federation of Press Women Award, and Feathered Quill Award. She's the executive director of the Women of Appalachia Project and editor of its anthology series Women Speak. Gunter Seymour is a retired instructor in the E.W. Scripps School of Journalism at Ohio University and the editor of I Thought I Heard a Cardinal Sing, Ohio's Appalachian Voices, funded through the Academy of American Poets and the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. She was selected to serve as a 2022 Dodge Poetry Festival poet and is a Pillars of Prosperity Fellow for the Foundation of Appalachian, Ohio. Her work's been featured in a variety of journals and publications, including World Literature Today, American Book Review, Poem a Day, Katie Couric's Wake Up Call, and the New York Times. So, as always, Kari, always a pleasure to be hanging out with you for another edition of Spoken and Heard. Welcome.
Thank you, Haley. So good of you to be hosting us tonight. You're off in California. That's in some ways very exciting, but also some family business. So thank you for keeping us on task and providing the platform tonight. We're always so grateful to Sheila-Na-Gig and you. I want to do a big old shout out to the Ohio Arts Council for sponsoring the 2026 season of Spoken and Heard. And I want to welcome our audience tonight, those of you here with us and those who will stream later on social media and YouTube. So tonight, I'm excited to welcome poet nonfiction writer J.D. Isip and nonfiction novelist Mandi Fugate Sheffel, along with our wonderfully cantankerous singer-songwriter Andy Milliken. We'll do a short Q&A after the readings for those of you with us tonight. So please jot down your questions and be ready to enter them in the chat at the end of the readings. So let's begin. Andy Milliken is my musician in residence for the 2026 season of Spoken and Heard, and I might mention that J.D. Isip made this possible. He is also known as Ange McGillicuddy, and he likes to say that he is a poor mud farmer living in a shack he built on the banks of the mighty Raccoon, which is the longest creek in the world, with his dog Oscar, his guitar, and the banjo his grandpa gave him. He writes songs about real life in Appalachian Americana in a sad boy alt country style. Beyond being incredibly talented, Andy is one of the kindest people I know. Take it away, Andy.
Thank you so much, Kari. Thanks for having me. I was kind of going back and forth on what to sing this evening. I'm going to sing this song about my buddy Bart. He taught me how to play the guitar some, but he mostly taught me how to play in the bar. He passed away a couple years ago. He died in the bathroom like Elvis. I think it's how he would have wanted to go. See, that's why I wanted to see all your faces so I could tell you were laughing at my jokes. We talk about process a lot, and I'm somewhat hesitant to because I don't really have one. I wrote this a long time ago. I wrote this initially before I could drive, because I walked to the VFW where Bart was tending bar to play it for him. And I'm sure that my 16-year-old self would have loved to talk about my process. But this one, Bart had a lyric change in it. He changed the word cemetery to graveyard. And I know I can't hear y'all because your mics aren't on, but does anybody know the difference between a cemetery and a graveyard? Well, A graveyard is attached to a church and a cemetery is freestanding. You thought it was going to be a joke, but it was just a bummer. Well, the sky started crying about 4 o'clock that afternoon, and I knew it wouldn't let up for a while. So we packed up our guitars, and I drove to where he was staying, said goodbye, and I tried to force a smile. When I picked him up, he'd been sober for a day or so. His eyes were tired, and he said he was in pain. So we headed to the graveyard and sit up on a wall. We picked some tunes, but there wasn't much to say. He's a little bird and it's a great big sky. He sings real pretty songs, but he never leaves his wire. Can't soar with the eagles because he can't get that high. Maybe someday he'll remember how to fly. Had a sad face to gaze into that sort of made you understand how the life he chose had treated him real rough. Started out in redneck bars and couldn't set that bottle down after the first time I picked him up. He's a little bird and it's a great big sky. He sings real pretty songs, but he never leaves his wire. Can't soar with the eagles because he can't get that high. Maybe someday he'll remember how to fly. He could pick out any tune that anyone might want to hear. He never made a dime, but he was good at what he'd done. Used to tell me stories about the big time knocking at his door, but at some point he traded dreams for Demon Run. He's a little bird and it's a great big sky. He sings real pretty songs, but he never leaves his wire. Can't soar with the eagles because he can't get that high. Maybe someday he'll remember how to fly. Maybe someday he'll remember how to fly. Maybe someday.
Yay! Oh my gosh, Andy, that's a first. I don't think we've ever had anybody whistle on Spoken and Heard. I like
Well,
that so much.
Dan's not here. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for that song. I don't know how anybody couldn't smile, even though it was a little bit of a sad song in a way, but the tempo was so wonderful and your voice is so just extraordinary. So thank you so much for that song and getting us started, Andy.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we're going to move on from that. It's not going to be easy. So, Mandi Fugate Sheffel was born and raised in Red Fox, Kentucky. She is a graduate of Eastern Kentucky University and is currently the Sycamore Fund Project Coordinator at the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky and Board Vice Chair of the Mountain Association. Additionally, she owns and operates Reed Spotted Newt. It said red though, so Red Spotted Newt, spelled Reed. There we go. That was a lot better, right? Yeah. An independent bookstore in the coal fields of Eastern Kentucky. Her personal essays and opinion pieces can be found in Still the Journal, Lexington Herald Leader, and the Courier Journal. Her memoir, The Nature of Pain, is available now through the University Press of Kentucky. In The Nature of Pain, Sheffel recounts coming of age during the opioid epidemic of the late 1990s and early 2000s. She illuminates the importance of kinship and connection to place while exposing the bitter truths of a community transformed by opioids. You can find The Nature of Pain at University of Kentucky Press and also on my website, Kari Gunter Seymour, poet.com. So I met Mandi several years back, and I'm trying to think it was probably just on social media, but I know our big meet was always at Heinemann Settlement School in Kentucky. And I'm always happy to go there and spend time there. And I think the first time I met her was actually there. This book, friends, is changing the landscape. And so it's also changing and saving lives. And she's an amazing human being inside and out. So a huge, wonderful welcome to Mandi Fugate Sheffel.
Thank you, Carrie. And I appreciate the kind words about the book. Um, Also, thanks to Andy. That was wonderful. I think we should combine music and writing more often. I like that way to kick it off. That was fun. Um, and it seems fitting because there's a lot of reference to music in the book. I mean, music is a huge part of my life. So, thanks for that. And thank you for having me. This is great. I enjoy any opportunity to just kind of see if people have read the book, what their thoughts are, how it's resonating with people. Because I think it's one of the fascinating things about writing to me is that once it's out into the world, it's really out of your control. And so I'm always interested to talk to readers or get questions after I read just to kind of see how it's landing. But I would like to talk a little bit about the book before I read. So, and it's hard to talk about it without giving pieces of it away, but I think it's important. So, this came out of obviously the opioid epidemic of the mid to late 90s, which I was a teenager in those years. Um, and I think we have a lot of great literature around this subject, in particularly Beth Macy's work or Barbara Kingsolver, Steam Copperhead. Um, they are thoroughly researched and really well done. But I thought there was a gap in personal experience, someone who had lived it, and we could kind of see inside the mind of someone who is in the grips of opioid addiction, particularly this era of Oxycontin and the beginnings of the opioid epidemic. So it was so new to everybody, and nobody really knew what to do with it. And particularly like the adults in our lives had no idea what was happening and what to do with it. So anyway, I wanted to be able to share that experience, but I will say that um, when I started to write, I wasn't writing a book. I never set out to write a book. Um, this came from a grief process, honestly, and I had a family member, a first cousin, who was like my brother, and we were both only children and about a year and a half apart, and so we were really close. And a whole lot of this is our story, and to me, this is a book about grief more than it is the opioid epidemic. So and some people I think see that it comes through. I think it probably just depends on personal experience, which theme comes through stronger. Um, so my cousin Eric was murdered as the result of his active addiction, and I was in recovery at the time that it happened, and this was in 2013. And so I started to write just to process my grief because it was super scary, and it was a really dark place for me, and I didn't want to get high again. So I needed somewhere to go with that. And so I started to write, and that's kind of what kicked off the journey. And I won't go down the whole rabbit hole of how I've ended up at the writer's workshop at Heinemann Settlement School, but that's where I landed. That's where I found my community, and that's how my work got seen, got heard, and ended up University Press of Kentucky was interested in helping me tell my story. And so extremely grateful for that opportunity, and always um have so much gratitude for the Heinemann Settlement School and the Appalachian Writers Workshop. I just think it's a magical place with a lot of really magical people. Um so I'm gonna read a couple chapters I typically don't read, just because well, one, I'm coming off of about 6 7 months now of going around and talking about this book, and when I was out on book tour and on stage, I just stuck to the same thing because I just wanted the comfort of not having the unexpected. And so I just kind of stuck with the same chapter. Also, this is heavy material. I mean, this is a lot about addiction and death, and so I don't always want to be a buzzkill when I'm in the, no pun intended, out, talking to audiences. I'm like, I have one chapter that's kind of lighthearted, and that's the one I typically go to. But I think I'm gonna read the first couple, maybe. Just because I don't typically read those. Hopefully this doesn't backfire on me. So, um, so this one's called What's in a Name? My parents named me after a country music outlaw. My daddy loved Waylon Jennings. It only seemed fitting that his only daughter carry the name of Waylon's most iconic ballad. Originally released by Don Williams, Amanda became a hit for Waylon in 1974. By the time I was born in 1981, this song was embedded deep into my daddy. We'd listen to Waylon most every weekend, but I never once heard my daddy sing or listen to Amanda. My mom still sings Amanda, Light of My Life, anytime she can work it in. My daddy never sang to me. My mom considered naming me after my dad. Had things turned out different, I'd be answering to Terry. It might be Terry with an I, like how my mom spelled Mandi. I tried to imagine what my life would have been had I been Terry Fugate, the same as my father. I look like him, move my hands like him, I like to drink beer like him. It would have been hard to survive in the shadows of his name. Eric probably longed for a dad to be named after. My dad became more of a presence in Eric's life than he was in mine. Because Eric was a boy, there were things that my dad thought he needed, skill sets that someone teaches a boy. How to mow grass, how to change the oil, how to bait a hook. Eric's dad was never around, so my dad became that someone. I've spent my whole life clarifying the spelling of my nickname. Amanda Danielle Fugate, my full name at birth. Amanda thanks to Waylon, and Danielle for every woman's love of Danielle Steele in the early 80s, but Mandi to everyone who knew me. I was Amanda during roll call and doctor's appointments. Past that, I didn't associate with that name. I was 32 when I got married, and I couldn't let go of Fugate, not on paper or from my bones. In Eastern Kentucky, everything we do is tied to our last name. We know someone's whole history just by knowing who their people are. A person's last name gives them a level of credibility in the mountains. It's an immediate source of common ground. Whether good or bad, it's a history rooted in place. My husband's family moved into the region in the early 1950s. The Sheffel name is uncommon, so I dropped Danielle and became Amanda Fugate Sheffel. I wonder if that hurt my mom's feelings. What's it like for your child to abandon the name you adoringly chose for them? I didn't care. I needed a connection to my past, not the past of my husband's family. I wanted to stay rooted in place with the stories that I grew up with, stories that only existed among the storytellers of my family. My great grandpa, General Fugate, was a story larger than life. With his time as sheriff of Knott County and owner of a local grocery store, or my grandpa Phil Fugate's drunken car crash that left behind 4 small children and a widow. These are examples of what people will know about me when they figure out what set of Fugates I'm from. These are the things about my past I didn't have to explain when I'm meeting someone near home for the first time. This is part of the comfort for me. Not everyone with the same last name is directly related. It may be that we live in another part of the county or different community. In that case, we'd be from another set. Sometimes when I hear people call my name, it sounds weird in their mouths, almost like my name wasn't meant for others to say. It's a strange sensation. My husband rarely says my name. It's usually honey or hey. When he does, it draws me to attention. It became a signal that something is wrong. It's not something we decided. It's one of those unspoken things that develops over time. My dad called me Danielle or Fart, never Mandi. He always called Eric E.T. because his middle name was Tyson. He gave everyone a nickname. His sister Jennifer became Fur, and to my daddy, his friends were Hollywood, Wormy, and Bubba. Sometimes he'd refer to my mom Charlotte as Red because of her long red hair. He didn't say my name much. He didn't say her name much. He usually just called her my mother. Eric just called me Mandi. Eric and I were both comfortable going unnoticed. I've always felt like I had a mouthful of marbles when I introduced myself. I wondered if Eric felt that way. I know he dreaded introductions too. Mandi never came out clean and strong. It was always followed by Brandy or Andy. I wished for a name that no one would confuse. I wished for a name that didn't cause my face to turn red in anticipation of clarification. And maybe none of this would have mattered for a kid who wasn't so painfully shy. I wanted nothing more than to disappear. All my name ever did was make interactions challenging, make me stand out. I let teachers call me Amanda even though no one else did, because I couldn't speak up in front of class to tell them I'd prefer Mandi. I let people call me Andy because I never could correct anyone. I didn't get my mom's red hair or my dad's brown eyes. I didn't get their ability to command a room, but I stand like my dad, butt out, pinky out, one hand on my hip, the other motioning as I speak. I have strong opinions and the ability to survive like my mother. She was never afraid to stand up for what she believed in, and her beliefs spilled out for everyone around her to absorb. She was raised Jehovah's Witness and was never allowed to date or listen to secular music. There were no holidays, birthdays, or school dances in her world. This made her a target for teasing and ridicule among people her age. Her mother also battled an untreated mental illness. She wasn't very attentive to my mom or her sister, so they were responsible for getting themselves up and ready for school at an early age. My mom often went to school smelling bad and wearing dirty clothes. This, coupled with a strange religion, made my mom's early childhood a nightmare. My grandmother told her kids she wished they were never born. My mom made sure to tell me how much she loved me and wanted me every day. She was a child who had a child. I grew up on government assistance and free preschool. My mom was alone and had to make a life for us somehow. She was putting herself through school all while raising me. She taught me about perseverance and the realities of being on your own. Early on, it was expected that I learn to be independent. She knew how important being able to take care of yourself was. My affinity for escape could have come from anywhere. My dad was always searching for his escape. There was always somewhere better than where he was. My dad listened to Bob Seger's Traveling Man to keep his search for escape going. He never told me that. I just imagined that the lyrics said all the things he never did. I picture him behind the wheel of his old Jeep truck, windows down, cigarette between his fingers, the wind swirling through the cab. When I was young, sitting in the passenger seat, I liked the driving bass line and the tempo change of the song. It conjured emotions in me that made me feel like we could conquer the world. It wouldn't be until much later that I realized these lyrics epitomized my dad's lived experience. If ever a film was made about my dad, this would be the song that played over all of his failed attempts at settling down. The only version he would listen to was on Live Bullet, the double live album from Detroit, 1975. Traveling Man flows seamlessly into Beautiful Loser, and I couldn't think of a more perfect pairing. This feeling of needing to escape is prevalent in my life as it was in his, and his father before him. This was never anything we talked about, it was just something we did. He did. DNA's funny like that. It makes it hard to sort out what was bound to happen to you and what you pick up along the way. Is trauma passed down from generation to generation? What about sense of humor or ease of temperament? What about addiction? Eric and I were alike in a lot of ways. He was passive like me. He became addicted like me. He bottled up his feelings and feared letting anyone get close. He kept quiet unless he was sure about what he had to say. He never commanded attention. He was content in his own company with an element of discomfort when there was someone else to tend to. All of that felt familiar to me. Were these genetic traits or environmental? Addiction is an anomaly to people who have healthy coping skills. For most of the population, it's hard to understand the need to gravitate toward things that have a negative impact on their lives. It's slippery and difficult to categorize. I know that once something changes the way I feel, I want more of whatever that is. Ris- Ritualized, compulsive comfort seeking. It's been alcohol and drugs, sugar, travel, and love. Specifically, it's been alcohol and drugs. Drugs were consistent and dependable. When I had drugs, I didn't need anybody else. The social skills that I lacked didn't matter. Everything I feared disappeared. The inability to make connections was gone. The fear of abandonment was gone. The sense that nobody ever understood me was gone. This is what I tried to escape. This is what I sought. I guess it was the same for Eric. All of that works until it doesn't, until you're left with a deep-seated loneliness. My mom's words played repeatedly in my head. No matter where you go, there you are. There truly is no way to escape your mind. Addiction is a symptom of something deeper. Habits are cyclic. Habits are ingrained in our own makeup. Long after I took that last drink, I wanted more. I still feel I still feel like an appendage has been removed. There's a hole, there is pain. I work to break the cycle. I want it for me, but I also want it for my son. I want a new way of life for us all. But no matter how much I want to change, some things inevitably stay the same. The depression and anxiety I can see so clearly now in my past and present are overwhelming and motivating. Yet these things are hidden, buried, tucked away, waiting like constant reminders. I was named after a country music outlaw and his vision of a woman. I was named after an idea that probably could never really be. I wonder how much of that started, that first seed of who I would be, shaped who I would become. I wonder what was laid out for Eric and me by my parents who weren't ready for us. How did Traveling Man and Beautiful Loser map a route for us both? And why did I find my way into a different path when so many around me couldn't? And I think I'm not going to get into the next chapter because I think that's gonna put me over time. But um, I don't know, that to me that first chapter kind of lays the groundwork for what's to come, and it's easier to um, I maybe should have been reading that more often because it's hard just to drop in. You all know that, and not give a big bunch of context about what you're getting ready to read. So yeah, that was the first chapter, Out of the Nature of Pain.
My God, what a killer chapter. I'm thinking all of this came from you journaling
Yeah,
pretty much, which is just astounding if you think about it. I had a similar situation, which made me become a poet, but that's my story, not yours. Um, but you know how we write, and we're hoping people will find themselves relating to certain things. So in this book, not everyone's going to be an addict, but people may know folks who suffer or have suffered from addiction. So there's that connection, but you're also providing all these amazing other things like Waylon. Okay,
yeah,
Waylon Jennings. I loved Waylon Jennings when I was in my 20s. My God, him and Willie but Waylon knew pain.
yeah,
Waylon, and he could write about it, and he was so good. And oh God, miss him a lot. Um, so I loved the way you talked about, especially Appalachian folk, hill folk. Um, our people are so necessary. And Mandi, you know that like you, I found out who I was at Heinemann Settlement School. There is something magical there that helps people understand that they are worthy and that they they may be labeled other, but to our people, Heinemann people, and those that go out from that, we're proud to be other. We're proud. If you want to call us other, that's fine because we know who we are now and we're proud. And, most of our roots are Appalachian. And we know that means that those connections to our past, which connect us to our ancestors, we know all that is just so um, important because it connects us to our roots, which keeps us grounded. And that's, I'd like to think, maybe part of how you found your way out of what was happening to you. And we're going to talk about all that later, of course. So, but what I loved is that you start out this whole book by talking about your vulnerabilities. You just laid them right out there and bared yourself open, which is really a brave thing to do. I mean, the whole process of getting clean is so brave. I know you're going to disagree with me, but from the outside looking in, that is very much how it looks. And but you also listed what I'm calling your assets because you recognized, and the really, really great ones were from your mama, even though she stumbled a bit, she was young, you know. Um, but all the things she gave you by just admitting the mistakes she'd made and you know how she felt, but to love you so much in spite of all that is just so tremendous. And what great strength she had, you know. And then your dad, it says you know, he's like cantankerous and fun and you know, but also kind of dangerous in a way too, you know. Um, and so I felt like you were talking about generational DNA and how important that is, and how addiction can fill those holes within us. And I speak to this, and I'm not speaking as an addict, and I'm not saying that because I want to be removed from that pool of people that are considered so, because there is addiction in my family. Um, but I think we all have certain holes. And so when I say I don't have an addiction problem, in a way I'm lying. I don't have an addiction problem with alcohol or drugs. But when I'm freaked out, I overeat and I cannot help myself. And sometimes I eat and throw up. And it's not because I'm bulimic or making myself throw up. I just am trying to fill a hole inside myself. And I put food in there trying to do it. And I think you described it, started to describe it beautifully in saying that, you know, this is a way to be able to deal with what was happening because it made you feel different, made you feel different. And so I just wanted to say again how much respect I have for you for writing and sharing this book. And I agree with you. This first chapter is just killer and just an amazing way to get into the book. So I do hope you read it more now that you might not have to have such a rigorous schedule. So thank you so much for sharing it here tonight. We really appreciate that, Mandi, so much.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Whew. Okay, we're gonna try to move on here. Uh, so JD Isip is this year's Louise Bogan Award winner. Boom! Woohoo! This just happened in the last couple of weeks. I think he found out a few weeks ago he was a finalist. He maybe even found out then he was the winner, but he wasn't allowed to say. Yeah. So, okay. So you just found out. Okay. Wonderful. He found out when just before the rest of us did. That's so exciting. It's an amazing accomplishment. And I'm trust he'll tell us more about that in a little bit as he's presenting his work. He's a professor of English originally from Southern California and currently living and teaching in South Texas. Ooh, you're ground zero, aren't you? Ooh. His full-length collection of poetry and creative nonfiction, including Pocketing Feathers from Sadie Girl Press, Kissing the Wound, and Reluctant Prophets, both from Moontide Press. He's currently editing the American Pulp Culture Almanac, which is going to be fabulous. Coming to a bookstore near you in March. Not sure if you have a publisher for that yet, and you can tell us if you do. It's be out in March 2027, probably by AWP time, I'm thinking. So just as a reminder, Kissing the Wound and Reluctant Prophets is at Moontime Press and Pocketing Feathers at Sadie Girl Press. Don't forget Mandi's books at University Press of Kentucky. Y'all can order all these books. So I met JD through the grapevine, as they say, and I'm, as you can tell, such a fan of his work. Both these people tonight I'm fangirling tonight with both of my guests tonight. This is so wonderful. I recently had the great honor of reading alongside him for a One Art Journal event. And folks, if you don't know One Art Journal, I hope you'll check them out. And you can have a poem sent to your, or several sent to your inbox every day from One Art. And they're fine, fine people, Mark and Louisa, there. So I hope you'll check them out. And I just wanted to say that JD walks through his life with his arms and heart wide open to every person he meets. His work is exemplary, and he leaves me breathless every time I read one of his poems or a piece of his nonfiction or hear him speak them. So tonight we're going to hear that. And so I'm beside myself thrilled to welcome JD Isip. Isip.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you so much, Haley, for having us and taking time out of your California time to be with us. I appreciate it. Kari, thank you so much for always being so wonderful and supportive. I really appreciate it. Andy, for starting us off with some music. You're awesome. Your dog is awesome too. And Mandi, I just finished your book. It's amazing. And part of me chose the pieces I'm going to read tonight, the beginning and the end, because I was thinking about them as part of your book. As Kari said, I grew up in Southern California, but I grew up very poor. I grew up in the projects, and so your book really spoke to me. And we're from two different worlds, obviously. But when you were talking about like, is this talking to other people? Are they finding something in it? I want you to know that it is. It really is a great piece, and you should be very proud. So with that, I'm going to start with, I've got a couple of pieces. I'm going to try to move through them and tell you where they're from. So these first two pieces are from Reluctant Prophets, and this is called The Hard Stuff. The Hard Stuff. The smell could make your eyes hurt. You believed it would take the varnish off the table. Nothing could make you take a sip back then. Back when Dad would cup the snifter under your nose. Take a drink, son, he'd tease, watching you squirm. A real man, he'd say, as your brother moved you aside. Drinks what he's given. When my brother lost his first baby, he didn't make a big deal. My father is dying slowly, but he doesn't mention it. It burns. Oh God, it burns. I say about most of this life because it does. It does. And to lighten things up, this one's called All My Red Flags Are Heart-Shaped. Kenneth, the pest control guy with the ass, is detailing the way the poison works. He says that they eat the food, but it doesn't kill them instantly. They live long enough to take it back to the colony and poison the lot of them. It's early afternoon. The sun is up, but he takes the beer I offer him and takes a seat. He has a ring. I remember my mother walking out into traffic when she finally figured out one of her married men was not getting that divorce. Kenneth asks if I have another beer, and of course I do. For this one, it's called Every Party. The only thing you need to know is Filipino dish. If you're not familiar, lumpia is basically egg rolls, right? So I mentioned lumpia, and it's egg. So every party brings me back to our kitchen and the projects, cow curtains and magnets lining the yellow refrigerator, packed with food we couldn't eat for almost a week. Instead, we made meals of leftover meat and veg from the lumpia, mom up all night cutting and frying, all of us dreaming of the grand entrance. Let them call us poor when they see this. Every dish of brick balanced in the facade, a challenge to notice they were the cheap cuts and donations. She had a gift for flavor. No one can deny it until she didn't. Until, like so much of this life, it left her in a lurch. Without her last defense, there would be no more hiding. Let them say what they want. And they did. She did. My sister, tasting the fruit salad of canned fruit and marshmallows and condensed milk, coconut, what we could find in the cupboards, everything Mom could think of, everything but an apology. So who could blame the cruelty? Let them take it back with them. My sister wasn't trying to cover her voice. It's terrible. You don't want to try it. She said, I couldn't see to who, but heard every word sitting next to my mom, who pulled in her bottom lip the way she did when life hit her, or a husband, or a daughter who maybe had a right. Maybe she thought, I deserve it. Chin out. Let them. And this one's called Storm Chaser. Um, Girl is like a bull. She sees a red flag and runs right for it. The human impulse has always been self-destructive. Take, for instance, fire from the gods or fruit or the fruit of knowledge. Girl didn't need a snake. Boy didn't need the girl. Both were already reaching over the security tape and barbed wire fence. Bankers explain away your money they lost on a whim. Man makes up a story on the spot. It's not what you think. Don't believe your lying eyes. Listen long enough to a narrative, you'll believe every war is a necessary evil. You'll believe in necessary evil. You'll believe in man. Run right in. Uh, this one's kind of a joke, but here we go. Simulacra. He starts in on Baudrillard, the quote about Disneyland and about Los Angeles in general, which isn't near Disneyland, and about America, about how we only see copies and how he isn't he copying Plato and saying so? So much about shadows, so much to say about the real and the unreal. And the way this weed boy in grad school who will pontificate you to death to a copy of death that is pretending you want to hear what he thinks about Pynchon or DeLillo, or honestly, could you get a hand job with this? Okay, and then I just have two more. Thanks for laughing. And these ones are a little bit heavier. So this one is there's a monster at the end. It's based. It starts off with the Grover book from our childhood. There's a monster at the end. So um, and it starts out with a epigraph from Joshua Marie Wilkinson. I was in love with what I feared. I was full of dangerous combinations. There's a monster at the end. Who could not relate to Grover, who told you as if to assure himself again and again, he is lovable and kind and brave, though, of course, he is also a monster who, at the moment, is begging you, please don't turn the page. I'm staying in the lines, my niece would say to her 4-year-old self. I'm staying in the lines, uncle, as she colored in ponies and flowers, her little fingers gripping each red, yellow, green, page after page, year after year, until, and you know it's coming, like it did with your little sisters, with her sister, who looked so pained to say, I don't color anymore, which strikes you as a sad sort of declaration, as if to say something absurd like, I don't do ice cream or happy. When a puppy is imprinting, she will apply any future event to a past experience, which is why Holly trusted me when, even as the needle went in, the vet incensed I could not pay just a couple thousand to keep her alive. My brother said she was the most beautiful in the litter and cost him a fortune, only his ever busy wife could not make the time, and Holly fell to me, a vacuum space filled with dog love for 15 years, who sobbed harder for her than I did for my mom. Let me. I had run a bath for him, tested the water, watched my lover sink in, his skin getting brighter, his dark hair wet and flat, his smile as my hand and the soap slid over his shoulders, around his neck. Holding my hand, he said, you really love me. We ended in Charles de Gaulle, racing to catch our flight, harried, two men too old back then to have been so wrong, to have missed our affections and ourselves, to scream so loud the French police had to pull me away from us. I really did. I want water that doesn't go cold. All of my little ones, my dogs and lovers, who let me love them, wash them, wrap them, warm them, hold them, and rock them, to know how much they take when they leave me, to pause, skip past how I failed or disappointed or disappeared, recall my better self, who was lovable and kind and brave, who really did love them, who perhaps could not show up or pay the bill or forgive, who, to be honest, was a monster in the end. And then this last one, again, Mandy's book made me think of this one. I had a similar experience of losing my mind and my shoelaces. So the lesson in losing it. You'll never not want to kill yourself, he said, matter of factly. He'd probably sat across hundreds or thousands of us, a new track of an old song. So the best you can do here, he held my hand, is find something to live for every single day. He gave me back my shoelaces, wallet, keys, a list of strengths I'd never afford or visit anyway. And as if it just came to him, he said, I've never seen a guy get as many visitors as you, honest to God. The same observation of Hobo Ryan, who told me to call him that. 19, checked himself in for a few nights off of Ocean Avenue, handsome, straight, but didn't mind a guy's mouth for a price. Laughed when he found out I was the quote unquote suicide. Man, I'd do anything to be you. Be gay even. Ha ha. I don't mind admitting I loved him then. But really, it's been almost a month and you've had visitors every goddamn day. Had it been that long? I lost hours and days, half my mind. And yet he was found in the middle of the night, no mental or emotional illness, no insurance, no way to say goodbye or tell me his last name, which even the doctor couldn't give me. Just a lanky blonde kid saying, I know it's weird the night before, but do you think I could sleep here with you? Nothing gay, man. Just, I don't know. Do you mind? How could I? Not at all. Just two guys who'd never see each other again, trying to find something to live for. Thank you.
We talked about this, and I might not be able to say things afterwards. And that's how it is. Oh, JD, just beautiful. And so like you to make tribute to the person who's reading with you in the evening and to always be thinking about others. I I loved thinking about your first poem because smell is such a trigger for us. It really is. And I was thinking about parents who give their children alcohol. And please, I'm not judging here. I'm just observing that you don't know. We do know now sort of that you shouldn't give kids alcohol because if they're going to be addicted, you might addict them right then and there when they're little. And that smell, instead of being a turn off, smell like something that could, burn the varnish off a table might be the best smell they ever smelled and they can't give it up their whole lives. And I just thought that was brilliant. Um, and talking about poverty is always important work. Um, and I don't know if you know Bernard Clay or his work, but he also grew up in the projects, and some of his work is extraordinary as well. And I just think he and you would just really get on. I really do. And he's somebody you might want to look up his work. Come to Hindman and meet him. That'd be real good if you wanted to come on up, to Kentucky, and then on up to Ohio a few days and stay with me. Anyway, um, I mean, I just had trouble taking notes after a while with you. I knew I was going to. Oh, your mom, another strong mom, is what I was getting at. Mandy was talking about the strength of her mama and yours as well. These amazing mamas who had the most put on them. And I've heard other people write about Robbie Nestor's another one talks about her mother. Their family was Jewish, and 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 that it was really important to her mama that they seemed to be people of substance, and that happened through the food, making sure there were wonderful smells coming out of their little apartment so that people would realize, oh, they must have a lot of money, smell that food. And it kind of sounds like your mama was thinking the same way. She had this gift of working with spices and the cheap cuts of meat and still making it delicious. And I found that wonderful. Um, the line, when life hit her or a husband, man, that just laid me out. All she went through to just keep food on the table, whether that was her addiction, I don't know. Again, not judging, but um and then for you to share so beautifully your own experiences and find something to live for. Whoo, whoo, man. sometimes easier said than done, but sometimes we don't even realize that it's right in front of us, do we? And so both of you, so beautiful, and just thank you both so much for reading tonight from your work. And like I said, I'm just a huge fan of both of you, and I'm fangirling to the max tonight. So thank you. I guess if you want to turn your mics on, all of you, I can ask a question. Um, I was thinking about uh, you, JD, and Mandi, and you also, Andy, because you talk a lot about growing up in Appalachia, or yeah, I think yeah, you say Appalachia, and and Jay, do you talk a lot about, you talk about the poverty of the projects and that, and Mandy, you open yourself about addiction and also where you grew up and how things were there. There were certain cultural aspects as well for all of you. So let's talk about revealing oneself in your work, um, what leads you to do it, and do you worry? Do you worry about doing that and how, what that's going to do to you and your family and your life? Okay, I'll stop so you all can answer some of that.
Well, Mandy, you've got the memoir, so
Yeah, I can go. Yes, I did worry. And I'll tell you why. I only worried because of the books that shall not be named.
Oh,
uh um
yes.
because memoirs of the past, let me say that. Memoirs of the past about Appalachia that people kind of hold as the guidepost, which are the furthest thing from. And so, I wanted to make my writing community proud, and I wanted to get it right in that way. And I also wanted to get it right for the people of Eastern Kentucky and Central Appalachia. So I felt a lot of pressure there, and I was scared in that way. I was not really reluctant to tell my story because, I'd had a history of 12-step group. And so, I had been in vulnerable spaces and said the things out loud. Um, it's a little different when you write it down and people read it, but I mean, the same concept. And I knew, um, I felt that it was important, and I knew people would connect. And I think the more specific that you can be, the more connection that you'll have. So I didn't want to kind of, just um, gloss over things. I wanted to tell the truth. Um, one, because I knew the people who had experience would connect, and two, um, I think we have lost our ability to be empathetic with people who are battling from opioid addiction because we're like 30 years into this and everybody's sick of it. And I see people on the streets suffering, and people are just passing over them because they're like, they don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. And so instead of digging deeper, I just feel like we've kind of lost our empathy. So in that way, I felt like it was important to be vulnerable and honest about what this did to this region. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think anytime you write, it's scary. I think just something about writing, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, poetry, I mean, just all of it is an act of vulnerability, even if it's not memoir.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mandy, go ahead.
I'm
Did you?
just going to say, just very quickly, I wanted to say, Mandy, I wanted to address He Who Will Not Be Named in his book. I think the very huge difference between that book and your book is exactly what you said. The honesty and the vulnerability. We know that person did not live in poverty. We know that person's grandparents earned three-figure, salaries, and the addiction came, and we never want to make fun or judge that, but the person was in the medical field, and all these things that are, anyway, this person, promotes this book as, from poverty to Yale, and you just want to go. So,
Yes.
yeah.
It is. Well, I mean, and to add on to that, the in Mandy's book, there is this vulnerability of in comparison. You're not always the good guy. As a matter of fact, like, in reading your book, there is this almost, I mean, and I know this probably comes from 12 steps and stuff, but there's this need to kind of like tell your side of like where you fail, right? And where you made mistakes, and taking a look at that other one. There's not that, maybe at the beginning or something like that. But I will say what I was going to say, Mandy, is Kari brought up that sense of smell. When I was reading your book, you mentioned drinking the first drink that you and Eric put into the cups was Seagram's and Sprite. That was my mom's drink of choice, and it just hit me like that. And you described it so well, as it was like candy, and compared to what my dad gave me was cognac, which I still cannot stand to this day. But give me a fruity drink, I am all over it, right? So again, like, the thing that you when you talk about addiction in your book, even though I wasn't addicted, I obviously grew up around it. You make it so that people can see that attraction, that attraction but also that attraction of feeling free. That party in your dad's house, um, uh, what that atmosphere is what I grew up around, and it was like, so you wanted to be a part of it because you wanted to be a part of something, and you just did such a really good job of illustrating that, and because it's hard to tell people, like, why would you want to be around these people who are dangerous and making really bad decisions. It's like, you don't know how sexy it is, you don't know how cool it feels to be part of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think an important element is that it wasn't all bad.
Right.
I mean, it was fun. I mean, there were fun parts to it. And I think that's another thing that people, when they get on the other side of it, I mean, for my benefit, I need to think about the hard times, but also acknowledging that, it was fun. And that's
Mhm.
why you go back. You don't go to jail after the first time most people don't. Anyway.
I was wondering about your book, Mandy. You said when you were writing, you weren't thinking about writing a book, but did you send the individual chapters out for publication? Because that first chapter really stands alone. I was wondering if you kind of parceled pieces out when you were putting it together.
So I had probably half of it that I had written, and I think so it came in like the fear of losing memory. So if I was driving down the road and I'd hear a song on the radio, it would trigger something, and I would kind of take notes somewhere and then get home and write everything I could remember about that specific memory, because I had this real irrational fear, or maybe rational, I don't know, that I would forget the memories of Eric. And so that was kind of the bones of it. And then I worked with an editor to kind of flesh out, um, because there were details like what Eric looks like that was not in the book at all, because my mind filled that in. I knew what he looked like, so there were things like that. But I did still the journal published a chapter that was, again, that kind of, in my mind, I imagined it like a memoir and essays. I really thought it was going to be like vignettes in the beginning. Um, but I was able to flesh it out. So no, I didn't submit, because I don't even think I knew that was an option in the beginning, because I was not, I mean, I wasn't writing. I wasn't in that community. I wasn't in that world. So I don't know that I knew that was even an option. Um, but I did get published through Steel, and then some op-eds, but that's different from the book. But um and the funny part is that chapter I had to go back and add because they were like, you don't talk about your mom. Your mom's not in this at all. And so I that was kind of like an afterthought. The first two chapters was given context to the family as a whole because to me this was about me and Eric and my dad's side of the family. So I went back and kind of filled those gaps in that first chapter.
Andy, do you feel like some of the things that you write are making yourself a little bit vulnerable? I remember the first song you shared with us. I believe it was about your cousin as a Marine.
Yeah, that one is less scary to share than a lot of the other ones for whatever reason. I think it's probably because it's so Toby Keithy. But yeah, being vulnerable. Well, I haven't had a real job since 2023, so I don't feel worried in that regard. But I guess in other regards, I do hesitate to be authentic sometimes. I live in a pretty rural area, and there's not a lot of places to play music. And specifically after the last election, I I stopped getting 4 or 5 bookings that I got 2 or 3 times a year because of my pro Harris posts. And people liked me when I played there, and I never talk about politics when I'm performing, but yeah, like stuff like that. It for a while made me hesitate to share my authentic self because it was costing me money that I literally couldn't afford to give up. In other ways, being authentic is scary. Like, well, the song I sang tonight about my buddy Bart, um, that one's not so problematic. But I have another song that I wrote about him after he died called "The Shit That Killed Elvis," which is what he always used to say about our Mexican dirtweed we were smoking. Um, but that one I rarely ever sing because Bart's sort of a local celebrity around here, and I also, I know his mom and his ex-wife, and I don't want to sing stuff that's gonna, rub bad memories in people's faces or have people tell them about them. Um, but at the same time, I guess what I comfort myself with, and it sounds self-deprecating, but it's really not. The only people that care are the people that, generally speaking, are the people that are going to appreciate what I'm doing. I almost said weird, but I don't want to lump you in with me. Most people, it's just going to glance right off them. They're not gonna read into it in depth. They're not thinking about you at all. They're thinking about themselves. So sometimes I share stuff and I'm real worried about sharing it, and it turns out nobody cares. Nobody paid attention at all, except for 1 or 2 people who appreciated it for those reasons.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Anybody else? Haley, did you have anything to add to that?
Um, not to add to what Andy's saying, but I do have a question for JD. If you,
Yeah.
I could talk about vulnerability till the cows come home, but I'm not going to go there. But yeah. So JD, you're a long way from Southern California, from Torrance and Redondo and Long Beach and all that. But do you find that being away from the place has opened up being able to write about it more?
100%. I think also I published my first book in 2015, which was a couple years after my mom passed away. And so I think some of some of the freedom comes from losing people, or losing the people that you that you care, that if they get mad, like, as with my mom out of the way, like I don't give a shit. Like, if other people are mad at me, if my dad comes along and says something, I'm all like, I love my dad, but my mom would probably murder me. So that was a bit of the freedom, and also like when you take yourself out of home, wherever home is, even if it's just 45 minutes away or something like that, you really see it brighter. Everything comes more into focus because you're not in the middle of it. And so I don't think anybody that wants to write about home can really do it unless they get some time away from home, to kind of see it for real. I don't know if Carrie, Mandy, Andy, if you guys would all feel the same way, but I just feel like I needed that draw away to kind of see what it was.
Well, in all honesty, I can't be away from home very long. Maybe I'm agoraphobic a little bit or something, but I miss I'm so rooted here, and probably it's because I'm so much older than all of you. That has a great deal to do about it, I'm sure. But I grew up around here, and I grew up on well, I didn't live at my grandparents' farm, but I was there every chance I got. I mean, literally. And that farm's still standing. There's another family that's farming it, and it's beautiful. And I drive past there, and I can see my grandfather. Oh, I'm gonna cry on his tractor in the field and how hard he worked for that tractor. And they had a tractor before they ever had a car or anything else. And um, when I get in the big city, I really sometimes have trouble breathing. Like when I go to AWP, I have a really nice time. It's fun to be there, but I cannot wait to get home. And you get stuck in traffic in a big city or something, and I'm just like, I know why this country's so mad. Everybody's so mad because they're living in these damn cities. And I really, yeah, so I do feel a little different than you. Um, but I do admire folks who can manage it, or long for it. Um, and I was just going to come back around to our talking about vulnerability and that sort of thing, and about how writing helps ease pain, right? It's therapeutic. I mean, would y'all kind of agree with that way to process?
Yeah, and I think that's probably why it was just kind of like I don't even know if it was a conscious reaction on my part that that's what I was doing after Eric's death, because I'd went through the step work, and so that is was kind of it's just pain lessened, and to get things out of the dark and to not, I mean, you don't have to tell anybody, but to get it on paper lessens the pain. And that was kind of like, a lot of mantras for the 12-step groups and the process of writing through the steps. Um and I can remember you know, burning one particular step because it's like the one where you tell all the things. And so and the ceremony of burning that, and I regret that now. But I would like to have that. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just my it had that means of lessening the pain had kind of worn a groove, I guess, because I just did it. And I don't think I was like, oh, I'm in pain, I'm going to write about that. It wasn't conscious. It was just like I didn't know where to go with it. I just didn't know what to do with it. And it was just so overwhelming, and it did feel like it lessened. And it felt good to write about the good memories, because all the memories that would come just as I was out in my day to day weren't all bad. Some of them were good, and so felt like I connected to him again
Mm,
in that way.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I always tell my inmates, I work with 18 prisons throughout Ohio, and I always tell them, if you can get it out of your head and on a piece of paper, it's like all of a sudden it's not so chaotic. It seems almost manageable when you read through it because you can think, I want to move that up here because that happened, or something like that. It's like you suddenly have control of all that because it's on a piece of paper somehow. Um, and yeah, so it's a great way to deal with grief and anger, for them, and it's a way to process and think about. Some of them like to write about, why they're there and what got them there, and yeah, I just think journaling is a really, really good thing. I
It
see.
helps them get to know, it helps you get to know yourself better. And like, Carrie, you brought up our moms, or, I don't want to speak for you, Mandy, but like, my mom was imperfect, right? Like just not a perfect person, very made lots and lots of mistakes. And but I think like when you write about somebody who's imperfect, even someone like Eric, right? Like you get to understand the good that was there and balance it out, and so they don't become this caricature, right? And we become more empathetic because we start writing about more people, like not just our family but like other people, and we start understanding like how they can become, make bad decisions, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, I would tell anybody to like write about, uh, just write, just write so you can become a better person.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's great advice. Yep.
I don't know.
Anything
I
else?
really don't feel like it's made me feel better at all.
Oh, Andy. Oh, but it got you to Dan, your best buddy now. So it found you a friend, which is really cool.
That's true. Just the other night, well, when we played out at Albany, Dan was talking about the venue and about how hard it was to get people out there. And we were standing in a group, and the owner of the venue was coming up behind Dan, and I just flicked my lighter at him like that, and he said, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. And I said, "Man, it's so good to be so close with somebody that you don't even have to say anything, and they know what you mean."
Yep. Yep. And your music, your writing brought you guys together, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, Mandy and I've talked a lot about the Hyman Settlement School, and that's what that's all about. It's a bunch of writers getting together once a year, and then just you're immediately kinfolk. It's like some kind of wild DNA funkiness that happens. Nobody's competitive. I mean, we sit there with Silas House and Bob Gipe and Lee Smith and Gurney Norman used to come, and everybody was on the same level. Nobody pretended they were better than anybody else. It's just amazing, and I think we're all just looking for community, right? I mean, that's why I do this, because it brings us together with more community people, that maybe haven't heard your work, and I want them to, and vice versa. So,
Well, thank you
anything
for that.
else? Yeah, we're all done. Okay, we talked a lot tonight. It was good
Yes.
stuff, though. I really appreciated that so much, and I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for reading tonight and playing your music tonight. Haley, thank you for hosting. I always want to be sure to thank the Ohio Arts Council who make all this possible. Um, and of course, not just Haley, but also Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Editions. That's her beautiful project that has changed so many people's lives through publication of their work. And everyone will tell you who's worked with Haley. She's the best editor they've ever worked with. So just so y'all know. And so everyone, remember to buy our guest books. If you don't want to go back through the tape, you can find them on my website. It's Kari Gunter Seymour Poet slash Spoken and Heard. And then I want to invite everyone to plan to join me in the fall. I'm gonna have Torley Bush, rabble rouser, talk about he who will not be named. Tori has taken him on, and I love it. It'd be so fun to have him. Also, Jesse Graves, Denise Duhamel, Andy Fogel, and Pauletta Hansel and I are going to kick it off or kick it down in November with our new books. And Andy will be back as well. Maybe his friend Dan as well will be with us. So that makes me very happy. So until we meet again, folks, thanks so much and good night.